for a lot of veterans, and I would assume this is probably the case for first responders, having that trust to be able to actually sit down with you and kind of unload that is one of the kind of the major roadblocks that I understand that a lot of people dealing with PTSD have. And, you know, I was just reading, I think DAV had an article not too long ago where they are talking about veterans were actually taking monitored use of like, you know, different types of drugs that would be like Molly or ecstasy to loosen that kind of affective filter or whatever you want to call it, so they could actually get to a place where they could be able to kind of unload, as you mentioned. So yeah. I feel like that relationship building from what you described in those different phases of the process is super huge. Can you talk a little bit about like how you start from the beginning and establish that? What are some things that you know you found success in from building those relationships?
So I feel like I have a little bit of relationship going into them because I am married to a first responder, and so I have that background in that for 20 years this year. I tell them 100%. I'm like, I do not know what it feels like to go into a burning building. I do not know what it feels like for to pull somebody over on the street if I'm working with my first. I don't know how that feels. I don't want to know that. I don't know what combat feels like. I don't. But I've lived it on the other side enough to know and peek behind that curtain a little bit to really understand what that's like. I also understand your lingo because I've heard it for 20 years as well. So when you're saying, yes, I have 3 refrigerators, or, I'm pissed off because B shift or C shift ate my bread, like I get that. Like that's a legit anger in that department.
We call that the raccoon of the company. So
okay.
Yeah.
Yes,
you come back from your field event and the dude raided your stash.
Yeah. Yes. I'm like, I get that. Was that you? That was you, Randy? Oh, that's who he was talking about. No, I was kidding.
It wasn't Randy. A couple days. So.
so I get that. I understand that, but I also understand what it's like to not want to come out of bed, and I understand what it's like to have the fear of being around people, and based upon my own incidents that came from a traumatic event as well. And so I have both of those, and our counselors have a direct line to first responders, whether it be fire, police, EMS, military, one of those. They understand that as well. They may not have walked into that burning building or fought in that mission or went overseas, but they have direct ties to that. And we're very, very informal. It is not, I have a therapy dog, Jester, that's with me, and he literally lays in the corner and you play with him while we're talking. The counselors are very non-traditional. We can cuss like sailors and quote scripture in the same sentence. It's very much laid back, and we get your world. As far as the ecstasy and that kind of stuff, whereas we wouldn't recommend that kind of stuff necessarily, there is a truth to that. And going on the medication side, it is a needed substance to help you loosen up just a little bit in order to break down those filters because and those walls because they've been built so long. We call it kind of the level playing field of the system, or the tourniquet of the system, just to kind of stop the bleeding. We don't want these medications to change your personality. I mean, if you're an asshole before, you're just going to be a medicated asshole. Like that's all there is to it. But enough to where you're like, okay, I'm comfortable talking about this stuff because that's the only way you're going to heal. You've got to get it out.
Yeah. And go ahead, Brian.
No, you're good.
I was just saying, like, it seems like there's multiple aspects of what you're saying. Like there's the kind of the relationship building where you're relating to someone coming in and saying, hey, like, here's where I'm at. I get your world because of my experience and being willing to kind of share a little bit of that. And to me, that kind of stands quite in contrast to what I hear a lot of the traditional, I'm going to sit down with a therapist and we have this kind of more, maybe a little more regimented, not as loose as what you're talking about, which to me sounds like a lot more approachable for a lot of veterans and first responders. So I feel like that's a takeaway that a lot of people, could probably learn from.